I'm Nick Reeves, and it's time for us to explore the Marvel Cosmic Universe. I hope you have your space helmet ready and you got that star portal opened because we're going to explore the Marvel Cosmic Universe. Now, often when I do these little shows, what I'm talking about is the geography. In this case, it would be the different planets, the different nebula, things like that. However, what we're going to talk about today are three of the major races that you may come across in your travels in the Marvel Cosmic Universe, how to interact with them best, and just kind of what to expect. Let's begin. So, the first one you may run across are the Kree. The Kree are a very militaristic race. Originally, they were all blue-skinned. You may have seen some of the blue-skinned Kree. Some of those blue-skinned, that's hard to say, blue-skinned Kree in your travels, but they're getting more and more rare. There is a subset of the Kree that has skin more like a Caucasian human. They are considered somewhat inferior, not something I like very much, but it's true. And the blue-skinned tend to be a higher ranking. You've probably heard of some of the Kree, particularly a Captain Mar-Vell. Captain Mar-Vell came to Earth and through a series of interesting encounters ended up giving his powers to a young Carol Danvers, where she later became Captain Marvel. Isn't that fun? Now, the Kree actually worship a collection of minds called the Supreme Intelligence. So it's very important when you're interacting with the Kree that you do absolutely nothing to insult the Supreme Intelligence, or they'll pretty likely kill you. So, when you're encountering the Kree, remember they may show deference to their blue-skinned brethren. They may look exactly like a human, depending. And some Kree will actually have superpowers, much like Captain Mar-Vell did. So it's good to stay on their good side so that you don't get blasted and have your head removed from an offhand comment from the Kree. Let's go ahead and move on to the next race. Now, many people who've had encounters with the X-Men may be more familiar with this race. These are the Shi'ar. Now, the Shi'ar have a vast empire that covers hundreds and hundreds of systems and thousands of worlds. The Shi'ar Empire is vast, and it is primarily ruled by the Shi'ar race. It's important to note that the Shi'ar race are avian in descent. Their hair, as we would call it, and their forearms actually have a type of feather that grows out, making it very easy to see them. Some Shi'ar have a limited form of telepathy, which is very important to anyone, again, who's had connection with the X-Men, because many years ago, Lilandra, the deposed empress of the Shi'ar Empire, made a connection with Charles Xavier. Charles Xavier had gathered the psychic will of the entire world to fight off an invading force called the Badoon. Bunch of nasty folks, I can tell you. And in doing so, his mind linked to that of Lilandra, and they started a long-distance relationship, we shall say. So at the time, Lilandra had actually been deposed by her wicked brother Daken, the Mad Emperor. Now, Daken had a very specific plan, and that was to reach the M'Kraan crystal. I always pronounce it the M'Kraan crystal, but it's the M'Kraan crystal. Very simply, the M'Kraan crystal has the ability to reshape reality, and indeed could destroy the entire universe if it is damaged. And that's exactly what happened. The X-Men were encountering the mad Emperor and fighting and all sorts of things, and the crystal was cracked. In fact, it was only from the influence of the nearly omnipotent being that we know of as the Phoenix that the universe was able to be saved. Later, Lilandra did become Empress, though she has been many different times deposed by her sister, Deathbird, and also a upstart known as Vulcan, who is a distant Summers brother. Don't get me started on that. What you should know about the Shi'ar is they are a very proud race, very proud of their lineage, and do tend to feel a little superior to other races. Unfortunately, that's a regular theme that you'll find when traveling through the cosmos. So it's best to keep a good deference unless you have the powers to back it up. So if you're traveling through the Shi'ar Empire, look for those feathery heads and don't be a jerk or you'll end up dead. Let's move on to our last race that we're going to talk about today. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Skrull. Now, the Skrull is one that a lot of humans have had encounters with and are afraid of. Why is that? Because the Skrull, for the most part, have an innate shape-shifting ability. They can instantly assume the form of any other humanoid, and in extreme cases, even objects like a tree or a cow. No, seriously, that happened once. But it's important for you to understand that the Kree, oh my goodness, I'm getting my races all mixed up. The Skrull are not necessarily evil. However, they do regard reconnaissance and assuming the form of others as no big deal. So they don't find it strange at all to assume this form of your brother or your sister or your mother in order to find information out from you. So you should know if you're traveling in Skrull space that it is not unusual at all to have someone look like someone you know. They do have a very limited telepathic ability that when they assume the form of someone, they're able to gain some base thoughts and knowledge that allow them to better impersonate that person, which makes them somewhat terrifying. If you're just a human traveling about, technically a single Skrull could take you out, take your form, and travel back to Earth. Things like that have happened in the past, where different Avengers and other characters have been assumed by a Skrull. So do be careful. Make sure to ask those questions that only one of your loved ones would know, even though a Skrull is able to assume those sort of surface thoughts and mannerisms. They cannot probe down deeply without doing a full assumption of that person, which takes time. So, what I want you to know is there is actually one little offshoot of the Skrull, and these I do want you to be especially careful of. They are called dire wraiths. Now, dire wraiths are about the spookiest thing that you could find out in the cosmos. Dire wraiths, as I said, are an evolutionary offshoot of the Skrull, and just like the Skrull, they have the ability to change their form. They normally look sort of reddish, kind of like giant bugbear bird, really creepy fellas with big long tongues that kind of come out. And those are what you want to watch out for, because what a dire wraith will do is inject their tongue right into the center of your skull, suck out your brains, and kill you. And they will then assume your form and have all of your memories, and if you're a mutant or otherwise, your powers as well. So you want to watch out for those guys. If you do know there are dire wraiths in the area, I recommend finding your local space knight, Rom being one of the champions of Earth. And their job is to destroy the dire wraiths and send them packing to limbo. Now, be careful, because in addition to that head-sucking power, the dire wraiths also often have black magic that they are able to use. Yes, as if it weren't bad enough they suck out your brains, they're also magic users too. But that's why it's so good to have your local space knight with their neutralizing gun that will not only take out the dire wraiths, but send them down to limbo. So, as we're wrapping up, be safe out there. There is so much else to cover in the cosmic universe, from everywhere from Galactus to the Celestials. So I want you to be careful. Make sure to be on your best behavior, because both the Kree, the Skrull, and the Shi'ar all have a bit of a superiority complex. So be on your best behavior, and remember, if you're looking over at your brother and he seems to be acting a little odd, why, he just might be a Skrull. I'm Nick Reeves, and you have fun out there. Hi, I'm Nick Reeves, or I might be a Skrull in disguise. Just kidding, probably. But if you've enjoyed this video, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to Roleplay Riot, or you can watch another one of these travel videos from a fictional world. You have a great day.